Welcome, aviation enthusiasts and history buffs, to Classic Duels, a captivating mini-documentary series that takes you deep into the heart of the adrenaline-pumping battles that unfolded in the skies during World War II. In this episode, we're mostly in the skies above China and Burma in 1943, and we're going to talk about the deadly duels between the B-24 Liberator and the Ki-43 Hayabusa. The Nakajima Ki-43 Hayabusa and the Consolidated B-24 Liberator played significant roles in the Pacific and China-Burma-India theatres during World War II, and the aerial combat between the Nakajima Ki-43 Oscar and the B-24 Liberator bomber during World War II in China and Burma provides a compelling narrative of clashes between Japanese and Allied air forces. Conflicts between the Ki-43 Oscar and the B-24 Liberator unfolded primarily in the skies over China and Burma, where Japanese forces sought to establish dominance and Allied forces aimed to disrupt Japanese supply lines and support Chinese and British forces in the region. The Nakajima Ki-43 Hayabusa, codenamed Oscar by the Allies, was a Japanese lightweight, highly manoeuvrable fighter aircraft operated by the Imperial Japanese Army Air Service. It entered service in 1941 and quickly gained a reputation for its agility and dogfighting capabilities, and was one of Japan's primary fighter aircraft during the early years of the war in the Pacific. On the other side, the Consolidated B-24 Liberator was an American heavy bomber utilised extensively by multiple Allied forces. Known for its long range and heavy bomb load, the B-24 played a crucial role in strategic bombing campaigns against Axis targets in Europe, the Mediterranean, and the Pacific. The 7th Bomb Group targets in the south of Burma were over 750 miles from the group's bases in India, which were beyond the range of escorting British Hurricanes and American P-40 fighters. So the bomb group had to fly unescorted missions deep into Japanese-occupied territory. This meant that the combination of air discipline and evasive tactics were the only means of countering Japanese fighter attacks. The 7th Bomb Group would soon find out that a small formation of 6 or 7 B-24s, flown by good and experienced crews, were actually pretty manoeuvrable. With good air discipline, a small bomber formation could undertake sharp evasive manoeuvres and still maintain all-important formation integrity. Japanese fighter pilots in Burma also learned to attack the Liberators from the front, with the majority of attacks coming from 1 or 2 o'clock or 10 or 11 o'clock positions at either the same altitude or above. After the first few encounters with the Oscars, the B-24 squadrons learned that if they turned into the Japanese fighters, they could disrupt their attacks. A diving turn in particular would give the top turret gunners an opportunity to fire at the attacking fighters, and it would also quickly close the gap between the fighter and bomber, which meant the Ki-43 had less time to aim and shoot. This would often force the Japanese fighter pilots to dive away past the bomber formation to set up a new attack. Another effective evasive manoeuvre for a small B-24 formation was to turn away from the fighters that were approaching for a full frontal attack. This would leave the Ki-43 pilots with not much choice but to attack from the rear, facing the B-24's tail turret. As most of the Japanese pilots were reluctant to do that, they would have to pull away, catch up with the bombers, and start the attack again. With the B-24Ds, the 7th Bomb Group could bomb up to 25,000 feet. So at these altitudes, the B-24s would use maximum cruise power to leave the target area at high speed, which greatly reduced the Hayabusa's speed advantage. And the 7th Bomb Group soon found out that with evasive tactics and high speed withdrawal, the attacking Ki-43s could only make a few passes during a 40 to 60 minute battle. Ki-43 Oscar pilots in Burma and China found the Liberator to be a formidable and intimidating opponent. The Japanese pilots knew that the B-24 was well armed and protected, so trying to shoot a B-24 down in the lightly armed Ki-43 Hayabusa was not an easy task, with one Japanese pilot recalling that attacking a Liberator felt like attacking an impregnable fortress. One Japanese ace pilot recalled that no matter how much the Oscars shot at the B-24s, they would not go down, with one example being when 5 Oscars shot over 1,000 rounds into one B-24, but the bomber continued to fly as if nothing happened. While the Japanese realised that a frontal attack was the best way of combating the B-24s, one disadvantage of that was approaching the front was difficult and you didn't get a lot of chances. Even if a pilot was successful in shooting a B-24 from the front, the combined power of the American bomber formation was still formidable, and the lightly armoured Hayabusas would usually get hit as they shot past the Liberators. Battles against the B-24 Liberators would put a mental strain on the Japanese pilots. The Japanese pilots, who were usually aggressive and trained to go on the offensive, not to mention a number of victories over Allied fighters, having to adopt a more passive and defensive role, and their lack of success against the Liberators was demoralising, and Japanese pilots were becoming more reluctant to attack the bombers. So two Japanese flight captains came to the conclusion that the best way to attack a B-24 was from the front and slightly above. Plus the fighters would make concentrated attacks on a single bomber, which increased its chances of knocking it down and reducing defensive fire from the bomber formation. Nearly all the Ki-43 pilots realised that the lightly armed Oscar was not suited to the task of intercepting B-24s, and despite longing for a more faster and better armed fighter, they had no choice but to carry on using the Oscar. Ki-43 squadrons in Burma developed tactics for attacking the B-24s, and attacks of a lead bomber in the formation could disrupt the group's bombing run on the target, and could potentially cost the squadron a commander or group operations officer. Air combats between the Ki-43 and B-24 in the second half of 1943 demonstrated that in the right circumstances, with the right tactics, experienced pilots, sufficient enough aircraft and the absence of fighter escorts, the Oscars could inflict significant losses on a formation of Liberators, and Oscar units in Burma and China managed to inflict more losses on the 7th and 308th Bomb Group B-24s than they themselves suffered. However, as the war went on, the loss of experienced pilots and adequately trained replacements meant that a lot of pilots had much of a chance against the more modern Allied fighters that had the range to escort the B-24s deeper into enemy territory, like the P-38 Lightning and P-51 Mustang. Overall, the aerial combat in China and Burma underscored the importance of air power in the Pacific theatre and contributed to the eventual Allied victory in World War II. The lessons learned from these engagements helped shape the development of future aircraft and tactics in the post-war era. So that's it for this glimpse into epic struggles of the past. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell so you can stay up to date with more riveting tales of aviation history, etc. Check out the two videos at the end, or my CD reviews, or even the playlist I've created. Cheers.